you can get some really, really good pictures with your phone cameras, and that's what I'm going to be assuming that anybody is using. Now, if anybody has an SLR camera, SLR is kind of like cameras with the big bodies and the long lenses. If anybody has one of those and they want to bring it, feel free. I can help you kind of work with that if you're going to bring it. But I'm assuming that most, I'm assuming that most people are going to be using your phone. So the PowerPoint today is just kind of teaching you a couple of things that you can change settings-wise on your phone to get a little bit more control. Because most of the time on your phone, right, it's point and shoot, right? You open up the app, you click the button, it takes the picture. All of these settings are automatically done for you by the AI. There are some things that you can change on it. Okay, that's what we're going to look at. iPhones have much less customization than the Android phones do. Okay? Okay. So let me get the lights. Everybody can actually take out their phones because you're going to need them. Now that's an iPhone screen. If you open your phone, mine is an iPhone. Okay, it's okay, just listen then. Right? So your phone screen looks like that. Now, normally when you take a picture, the camera decides, or the computer decides what the main focus is. When you move your camera around, you see that yellow box kind of popping up? Okay, so what that's doing, what that yellow box is the focal point of the camera, okay? That's where the computer is assuming you want to take a photo of, and therefore the focus is there. Now, you can tap on your screen anywhere, and what you will see is that yellow box goes wherever you tap, meaning that you can control where you want the camera to focus in any given picture.
So what's the flower?
Okay? So that's the first thing. Now, the other thing is if you hold your finger on the screen, you will get something that says AE/AF lock. What that means is that you can keep the focus there even when the camera moves. So if I want to keep the focus in one spot with my camera, the focus will remain in that spot on the screen. Okay? So that's just a few of the simple ways you can change how some of the automatic functions on your camera are working. The other big thing that you will see is the exposure. Okay, so that's, if you go through your settings, the exposure looks on iPhone is like this plus or minus button.
How did we get there?
So tap, if you go to the settings or the grid.
Oh, I found it.
Right at the top, if you have an iPhone, an Android might be different. But if
it makes it lighter.
Yeah, so exposure means the amount of light that the camera lens is exposing, or the picture is going to expose. The more exposure you have, the brighter the picture is going to be. The lower the exposure, the darker it's going to be. So you can change the way your phone takes light, the way your phone captures light by changing the exposure. So oftentimes, for example, the cameras nowadays, when you're standing, when you have somebody who is standing against the window, right? So if you have like a bright, like today, if I put somebody up against this window to take a photo of them, what would that person look like on the camera? They would look all dark. The reason that they would look dark is because the camera is compensating for the amount of light coming in the window, and the person in front is underexposed. You can change that by increasing your exposure. Vice versa, if it's really bright outside and you're getting too much light, you can drop the exposure. Okay? So those are just some of the basic ways you can control some of the settings that the camera allows you to do. Any questions about those? Okay. So, the manual control is, like I said, less for the iPhone, more for the Android. So in Android, you can actually switch to manual or pro mode, and it will give you a whole bunch of other settings, okay? Things like shutter speed, And ISO is basically how sensitive the lens is to light, how much light it's taking in. Shutter speed is how fast the camera snaps the photo. Okay? So you may think that when the camera, when you click the button, that the shutter is just like instant, right? It isn't. It takes
Like that?
1 second, EJ. The shutter speed really impacts the amount of light you take in. So photos are all about how much light is hitting the sensor on your camera. That's what creates the picture, right? If you have a very slow shutter speed, which you can control in Android, you cannot in iPhone. Okay, that's an automatic function. But the shutter speed basically is, guys. Okay. The shutter speed basically is how long. Imagine that you were keep your eyes open. That's like the shutter speed. The longer you keep your eye open, the more light comes in your eye. That's a slower shutter speed. If you blink your eyes very rapidly, that's a quick shutter speed. The shutter speed does basically one thing. It narrows the amount of light hitting your sensor. So if it's really bright and you have a lot of light, you can have a very fast shutter speed. And a fast shutter speed will allow you to capture things in motion. So for example, if you are trying to capture a bird flying, what moves very quickly when birds fly generally? Their wings, right? So if you have a very fast shutter speed and you're trying to catch a bird flying, it will freeze the bird in mid-motion. You will see a very crisp shot of the bird's wings at the moment you took the photo. If you dropped your shutter speed and kept the sensor open longer, what you would see is not the outline of the bird, you would see a blur where the wings are, because the image is moving as the sensor is open, okay? So slow shutter speed is really good for taking pictures in low light, because you're allowing more light in, but the object that you are taking a photograph of has to be relatively still, because then it will blur. If you're trying to capture something quickly, a fast shutter speed works better. Okay, those are the general ideas. White balance is something, like I said, most of the time the computer focuses. White balance is what allows you, what the camera does to balance color and black and white. So it will focus on an object and use that, like this is my white reference. And that will be the brightest part of the photo, just like I talked to you guys before, and it will change the amount of light or dark based on that. Okay? Again, that's not something that iPhones will change, and in fact, it's not something that would probably change for the Android users. White balance adjustment works well if you're taking photos where there's lots of white. Like if you're taking a photograph of a snowy landscape, okay, the white balance becomes important because then you can wash everything out and make it look great. But for like springtime where we are now, hopefully sunny, it shouldn't make a difference. Okay, now the other thing is the lighting. Now, there are certain things you cannot do anything with. Right? There are 2 times of the day where we have golden hours. So there are 2 golden hours a day for photography. One is just before the sun sets, and one is just before the sun rises. Okay? This is golden hour. What do you notice about the light in this picture? What is the color of it?
It's yellow.
Golden. Golden, yellow, warm, red colors. You only get this color light as the sun is setting. And the angle of the sun. Why are you guys not listening? Put your phones down. As the sun is setting, right, as it gets lower in the atmosphere, it changes the angle and you see more red light, less blue light. Okay? That is when you get what they call the golden hour. Now, unfortunately for us, that's not going to be at play when we're on our trip, because we're not going to be there when the sun rises and we're not going to be there when the sun sets. But if you are looking to do some photography on your own, golden hour is a really great time to be taking outdoor photos. Okay? All right, rule of thirds. So composition is the next important thing. I've talked to you about what types of settings you can manipulate on your camera to try and get the image that you want. Okay? The point of you taking the photograph and manipulating the camera to give you the image that you want is that you are creating something that looks the way you